I still have the screenshots saved on my phone from the months I lived with Alex in that tiny apartment off 5th Street. The ones that haunt me the most are the Instagram posts where she was supposed to be documenting her summer vacation. But really, it was a countdown of warning signs. At first, it was just little things, her posting the same sunset photo every week from a different location, or captioning a picture of herself with friends, having the time of my life, despite only being able to make it out of the apartment for an hour on Saturday nights. But then there were the ones that really caught my attention. The cryptic messages about people she was afraid to trust, the vague references to problems at home, and the photos of herself with dark circles under her eyes, claiming she'd just gotten some new makeup. I almost didn't include that one post where she confessed to being so done with this toxic cycle, but something about it still doesn't add up. The way she phrased it, like it was a breakup or a bad relationship, rather than the fact that her mom had taken away her phone for a week, made me wonder if I'd been misinterpreting everything. As I went back through those posts, I started to notice patterns. Every time Alex would post about being anxious or overwhelmed, she'd follow it up with some grand declaration of new beginnings and photos of herself at the beach. It was like she was trying to convince herself as much as anyone else that she was okay. But then there were the posts where she didn't even bother with the facade, just straightforward admissions of being hungover or having lost it with someone. Those ones always made me feel uneasy because they were so raw. And yet somehow, Alex still managed to spin them into some sort of empowering narrative about resilience. The more I scrolled through those posts, the more I realized that Alex was trying to present a certain image, one of carefree adventure, of confidence and independence, what I didn't know until much later. But here's what I found out. She'd been struggling with addiction for years, hiding it behind all these carefully curated illusions on social media. It's funny how, looking back now, I can see the red flags everywhere. Alex's frantic need to document every detail of her life, her increasing reliance on Instagram as a validation system. It's almost laughable that we were both so caught up in presenting this perfect online persona, while our real lives were unraveling behind the scenes. I still don't know if I'd do it again. Confront Alex about what I saw. But one thing's for sure. Those posts were more than just a social media spectacle. They were a warning sign, flashing bright red and screaming help into the void. But what really gets me is how we all ignored it at first. Alex, her other friends, even I was caught up in this illusion of perfection she'd created. We'd comment on each post, like and share, without ever stopping to think about the actual person behind the screen. And then there were the posts that seemed a little off, where she'd be drinking alone at 3 a.m. or talking about feeling hopeless. But we just brush it off as, oh, Alex being dramatic again, and move on. Looking back now, I can see how we all played into her addiction, feeding off her online persona like vultures. We'd get a vicarious thrill from seeing her life unfold in these tiny little snapshots, never stopping to think about the toll it was taking on her actual well-being. And Alex herself, she was using us as validation, seeking our approval and likes like they were some kind of currency. One post that still sticks out to me is when she accidentally posted a video from the night before a wild party with people I'd never seen before, all clearly intoxicated. It's not like we didn't see her drinking in other posts. It was just this one time where she left the comments open for a few hours and, oh, what a mess ensued. People were begging her to take down the video, while others were making snide remarks about how this was so Alex. All of us caught up in our own little online soap opera. That night still makes my blood boil when I think about it, because if we just stopped for 1 second and actually talked to each other instead of commenting from afar, maybe things wouldn't have escalated like they did. But no, we just kept fueling the fire with our likes and comments, until finally Alex had a meltdown in public. And that's when I realized just how deep she was struggling. It's funny how addiction works. You never think it'll happen to someone you know, but then it does, and suddenly all those red flags make perfect sense. Looking back now, I see the toll it took on our living situation. Alex would go missing for hours at a time, sometimes coming home in the middle of the night with no explanation. Her phone was always off or blowing up with texts from God knows who. She started taking on extra shifts just to fund this online facade, and I'm ashamed to admit how little we did about it. But that's not all. There were these other signs too. Like, have you ever noticed how people with addiction often post these self-care or mental health posts? It's like they're trying to signal to the world that everything is fine, when really it's just the opposite. Alex did this a lot, posting about her yoga practice or meditation retreats, while secretly she was drowning in debt, and on the brink of losing everything. It all sounds so cliché now, but trust me, at the time we were all convinced Alex had it together more than us. And that's what I think really scared me. Seeing someone you consider a close friend self-destruct like this, while everyone around them just cheers and jeers along as if it's some kind of sick spectator sport. And yet, maybe I'm wrong about all of this. Maybe Alex didn't need my help after all, maybe. She just needed us to stay out of her way long enough for her to figure things out on her own terms. It's a strange thought, but one that keeps me up at night even now. But as I look back on those Instagram posts, I see more than just a facade. I see warning signs, flashing red lights, trying to tell us something we were too blind to see. She'd post about her abundance and manifesting wealth, but the pictures would be of her eating ramen noodles in a dingy apartment, or holding up a bottle of cheap wine with a caption like, "Cheers to manifestation." And then there was the time she posted about quitting her dead-end job to focus on her passion project, only to have me discover that she was still working a 40-hour week at some soul-sucking corporate job. It was like she thought we'd never notice, that we'd just swallow whatever lie she served up next. But the most telling post of all came when she started posting about her self-care routine, always featuring these serene, idyllic landscapes and perfect, glowing skin. Meanwhile, I knew from personal experience that she was actually struggling with anxiety and depression, and had to be convinced by me just to take a few days off work. It's still hard for me to admit now, but looking back on all those posts, I realize how desperate Alex must have been, not for our help or support, but for our validation. And we gave it to her, hook, line, and sinker, every time she needed us to believe in her latest fantasy. But what really caught my attention was when Alex started posting about her new business venture, a lifestyle brand that promised to help people achieve their goals and live their best lives. The problem was, every single post was basically just a thinly veiled advertisement for some overpriced wellness product or service. I'd scroll through the comments, watching as our friends and acquaintances ate it up hook, line, and sinker, gushing about how inspiring Alex's posts were, asking her to share more tips and tricks. And Alex would lap it all up like a starving dog, feeding us just enough scraps of authenticity to keep us coming back for more. But I knew better. I'd seen the desperation in her eyes when she thought no one was looking, the way she'd downplay her struggles or make excuses, always pushing people away before they could get too close. And yet, on Instagram, Alex presented herself as this impossibly confident and put-together superwoman, capable of conquering anything that came her way. It's funny how oblivious we were back then. We thought Alex was just trying to live her best life, but in reality, she was drowning in debt from student loans and credit card bills, struggling to make ends meet on a salary that barely covered the rent alone. And yet, every time I brought it up with her, she'd brush me off or change the subject, as if I was some kind of meddling busybody trying to ruin her vibe. Looking back, I'm starting to think that Alex's Instagram posts were less about self-promotion and more about self-protection, a desperate attempt to keep people from seeing the cracks in her facade. And we, her friends and former roommates, played right into her hands every step of the way. We'd laugh along with her perfect vacation posts, never suspecting that she was using travel rewards to scrape together enough cash for groceries back home. We'd ooh and ah over her supposedly amazing new job, without realizing that it was just a gig that barely covered the cost of living in the city. And we'd buy into every Instagram post about her successful side hustles, completely unaware that she was peddling handmade crafts or overpriced candles to make ends meet. It's only now, looking back on those carefree days with a newfound understanding, that I see the warning signs Alex kept flashing like neon lights in my face. Her posts were always staged, always polished, and always a little too perfect, a desperate cry for help that we just didn't recognize at the time. But the most chilling thing of all was how easily it could have been me up there on that pedestal, hiding behind a carefully curated facade while drowning in debt.